Good evening and welcome back to the Clergy Café. It's great to be finally with you once again. It's Advent, can you believe it? But we are back and this is the Clergy Café. Yes, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget, we're live now for the next 4 weeks. It's been a month. It's hard to believe that those 4 weeks have gone by so quickly. But we have once again got another exciting series of the Clergy Café for you to join us with. So thank you for joining us. Once again, Father Chris has had his arm twisted and he has again, I'm just going to quickly tweak his camera before he comes in. He has kindly agreed to join us again. Good evening, Father Chris. How are you?
Good evening, Sandy. I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yes, very well, thank you. Bags under the eyes, but we're coping. The baby's keeping us up quite a bit during the night, but it's good. It's incredible. Can you believe, again, it's Advent nearly. We're sitting on the brink of Advent. We sat here at the beginning of Lent, and I don't think either of us thought we would ever be sat here again at Advent. Did you?
I don't know. I mean, that year almost has disappeared very quickly, but in other ways, it's taken a long time to get to Advent this year.
It feels like the days can go so slowly sometimes, but then when you look back, we did the Easter Triduum together, and that just feels like yesterday. But we've got an exciting 4 weeks ahead of us, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. It's great. It's great to mark Advent in a different way this year. Help us just to focus in on what the season's about.
But it's also good that the churches are going to be back open again for us to celebrate.
Delighted.
We might just miss the first lighting of the first candle, but the fact that we're back is good. It's a sign of moving forward anyway, isn't it?
It is. It's definitely a sign of hope, and that's great for this season.
And that leads us perfectly into tonight's theme of hope. Well done. I'm impressed. You'd think we'd have scripted that. But, Father Chris, thank you again for agreeing to join us. I know we've got a busy few broadcasts ahead of us this month. Father Chris has agreed to join us in mini broadcasts over Advent. And I'm going to try and not say Lent tonight because it's happened quite a few times already. But Father Chris, thank you for joining us once again.
Great pleasure.
So tonight we're going to start with that theme of hope, and it's a pleasure for me. I've got one of my friends. It's amazing. I do have a few people that I could call friends. And James Truby has been a friend of mine. We were talking before for quite some time now. Both met when we were working with the Salesian Sisters, both wanting to be Salesian Sisters, but failing miserably in that one. But James Truby now works for the Columbans. He's the Justice and Peace Education Worker for the Columban Missionaries. And we'll go into more detail about what that means as time goes on. In this role, he helps young people and educators to explore the relationship between faith and action, when possible through experience and encounter. A life unlike your own can be your teacher, said St. Columban. James is a qualified teacher, and he's qualified in education and training and development. He's got a PhD exploring life stories of activist educators. He has volunteered and worked for the Salesians and the Columbans and has had a variety of different experiences. Community life, prayer, supporting volunteers, social acting and action and activism. None of this adequately prepared him for being father to two small children. I read somewhere on the internet that James wished he'd done his doctorate in DIY because apparently he's struggling with that one. But anyway, but also tonight, I asked James if he was somebody that could join him tonight, and he has brought with him Father Kurt. Originally from the Philippines, but now living in the north of Myanmar, close to the border of China. Father Kurt is actually the person that we've interviewed from the furthest away. So officially the furthest away person tonight. Previously it was in the States, but now we have our furthest. He's now been a Columban missionary for the past 5 years. Father Kurt joined formation of the Columban missionary priesthood right after high school, but after his philosophy degree, he decided to leave the formation program and explore the world a bit. He spent some time teaching English in Korea. spent some time teaching history, and then landed a position of the National Economic and Development Authority Regional Government Office. That took me a while to practice reading. Father Kurt works a lot with young people, engaging them in interreligious dialogue, and currently he also coordinates justice and peace, interreligious dialogue activities for the Myanmar Mission Unit. Father Kurt is also attached to a local parish where he also celebrates Mass in their own language. He hears confessions, attends prayer meetings and other pastoral work, like visiting the sick. So it's great to have both James and Father Kurt with us. I warned both that we usually try and stick to a script, but when we meet James, you'll discover that actually the script might go right out the window. So I'm just going to bring them both in now. Good evening. How are we?
Good evening.
You're now live on screen.
Hello. Good evening.
So we've got James. James is at the top, and Father Kurt is down the bottom. So it's great to have both of you with us tonight. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Father Kurt, thank you for joining us from so far away. It really is great to have you with us. So we're just going to batter on, if you're happy. And I'm going to start with you, James. James, first question. Now, this is a question that you might struggle to answer, but tell us a little bit about what you do.
I have the best job in the world. So I am the Justice and Peace Education Worker for the Columbans, which means I work with young people and I work with educators, and I try and get them to kind of make those links between faith and action for the common good. So, for example, today I was in a primary school, and we interviewed a missionary in Fiji, and we heard something of her story. And we also heard about, we had her singing in Fijian and the kids singing back in Fijian. But then we also heard about what's happening with climate change on the ground right now in Fiji. We heard about coastal erosion, and we kind of unpacked that with the kids and thought about that. And then we wrote, we did some prayer activities. We'd explored Laudato Si a bit. And then we wrote Christmas cards to environmental defenders around the world doing one of CAFO's campaigns. And then tomorrow, I've got a day with chaplains all day online. So secondary school chaplains and unpacking Fratelli Tutti and kind of thinking about how do schools go beyond charity to justice and participation. So that's the kind of thing I do. And I just love it. I absolutely love my job. But
the sounds of it every day is pretty different, really.
Yeah, the Columbans, there's a tradition in Columban missionaries of rugged individuals. The history is they kind of sent these men off around the world, mostly to China, but they kind of got kicked out relatively quickly. And then they kind of were involved in lots of places where there was oppression and liberation theology, and they were kind of out there doing things individually. So while we are a team, and that's how Kurt and I are connected, at the same time, we all kind of get on with it. So they really do trust me, and it's wonderful to see a bunch of priests and lay missionaries, because they have lay missionaries as well from all around the world. So in the Philippines, they've got people from Korea, and here we've got people from the Philippines, and from, it's a wonderful kind of mismatch. And then they've got people like me that they employ, but they trust us, and I think that's a really beautiful thing.
So actually, your background was in teaching. And actually, a lot of that background would have helped you in what you're doing now. But why did you want to leave teaching? What made you want to leave?
Oh, it's much more complicated than that. I don't think I ever left anything. I always moved towards something.
It's a very positive way to put it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, I was a primary school teacher, and then I left there to try my vocation with the Salesians. And I tried that for a while. And then from there, I went to volunteer in the Philippines. And then that volunteering in the Philippines kind of changed my perspective on the world and led me to new things, which led me to do a master's and then work for the Salesians for years, and like step by step, and suddenly, I mean, it's the mystery of vocation, isn't it? It's the mystery of discernment, and I feel I've been very privileged. I've often been able to say, oh, I think this is what I ought to do, and knocking on lots of doors until I find someone that said yes. But the Columbans, oh my goodness, the journey with them, I think it's 6 years now. I came to them with a dream of a job that I would like to do, and they had a dream of someone that they wanted and the things that they wanted, and it fit very well together. Yeah, so I don't think I've ever left teaching, but I definitely left marking. Yeah.
So, how did you come to meet Father Kurt? Because obviously it's your contact that we've got tonight. How did you come to meet Father Kurt?
So around the world, there are a load of people. So the Columban big areas are, let's go back to the history of the Columban. So they moved out of China, and they were in places where there was oppression, and they were in places where there were other religions. And from there came the two big areas of Columban mission. So justice and peace and interreligious dialogue. And in this country, I'm on the justice and peace team. So JPIC is what we call it, justice, peace, integrity of creation. So it's the kind of ecological piece as well. So we have international meetings where justice and peace people from one side meet international people from another, usually by Zoom. We were using Zoom before it was fashionable, I've got to say. We knew Zoom. I had Zoom downloaded before all of this pandemic. And what happens, the young people use an expression, sliding into your DMs. What happens on these calls is, we're all supposed to be having a meeting and we're busy listening or talking to each other. And at the same time, I'm sending sly little messages to people I think, I wonder if you'd be good at talking to young people. And poor Kurt one day was probably listening like a good, committed priest taking part in the Columban mission. And up popped this mission from James saying, hey, do you fancy a chat sometime? Yeah, I think maybe this is your third gig with me, Kurt. I'm not sure. Something like that. Mm-hmm. So, there's a number of people now who are quite used to speaking to groups of young people here. So I mentioned a lay missionary in Fiji. There's a priest in Pakistan. There's a couple of activists around the place. There's a priest on the border between the States and Mexico who are getting very used to being interviewed by young people or speaking at events. And Kurt he's entered that stable, poor man. Poor man, he said yes to James. It's always a dangerous thing to do.
Danger, definitely. So maybe there's a new series for us as well, James. If you've got these contacts, we could use a nice little YouTube series going on there maybe for the future.
Oh, yeah. There's one coming up. You've given me the prime opportunity to advertise.
Plug now, have we now? Go
on. The SimFed Journeying Together program. I think it's the 9th of December at 11 o'clock. And it's going to be me, Father Liam in Pakistan, an Irish priest in Pakistan, A.G. Sano, who's a Filipino climate activist and artist, and a Typhoon Haiyan survivor, and Anna, who's a 17-year-old climate striker, Catholic student, activist, and we're going to have a conversation about walking the talk on climate change. So, end of advert.
Thanks for that plug, James. I thought that was going to come at some point. If it wasn't that one, it was going to be another one. So, anyway, Father Kurt, one of the things I've always realised about James, once you start him off, it's struggle to stop him sometimes. But, Father Kurt, thank you again for joining us tonight. And James, thank you for putting us in touch as well. So, you're a Columban priest. Tell us about, maybe fill in the gaps that James has left out. Tell us a bit about that, the charism of the Columbans.
Mm-hmm. The Columbans are a group of missionaries. And originally, they were all formed from Ireland. So most of the early Columban priests were Irish priests. And I grew up from a diocese in the Philippines that were mostly ministered by Columbans. And our charism is usually what James had there, crossing boundaries, breaking down walls and bridging bridges. And that's what I try to do here in Myanmar, working with Buddhists, but not only with Buddhists, but also with Muslims and Hindus. And like James, I'm also working for JPIC, or the Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation. And because Myanmar is a largely Buddhist country, I also work a lot with interreligious or interfaith dialogue. So that is what most Columbans do, JPIC and IRD.
And you did some of your training in Fiji as well. Tell us about Fiji.
As you can see from my background, it's the map of Fiji, my first love. Before ordination, I was sent as a student missionary. So I spent about 2 years learning the language, the culture, but also the way of life in the Fiji island. So I really fell in love with the culture and was really wanting to go back, but I was sent to another place. So that is what Colombans we have to obey. So I was sent to Myanmar, and Fiji was really a training ground for me because, like Myanmar, the diversity of religions and cultures is just as many as in Myanmar. And so in Fiji, I was working a lot with the minority Indians. They were the Gurmit. They were earlier they were brought out by the British, no, to work the sugarcane uh, fields in the Fiji Islands, and a lot of them settled in the island. So they were a minority, but now they are more or less half of the population of Fiji are of Indian descent. So I had to learn Hindi and also their own version of the Hindi. They call Fiji Hindi. So that was my first training for the mission.
And from what you're saying is actually enculturation is really important for you as well. Getting to know the area, getting to know where you are. Would you agree with that?
Yes, for Colombans, enculturation is very important. Like I remember when we had marriages, no weddings. Usually, the lady or the woman is Catholic, and the man is Hindu. So we usually have intermarriages between Hindus and Catholics. So we'd incorporate a lot of the Indian culture into the rite, and it's very beautiful. And the same thing here in Myanmar, in Kachin, where I work, the Colombans introduce enculturation, bringing the culture of the Kachins into their faith, and I think that really uh, inspired the Kachins to also treasure and to also promote their own culture.
And you described Myanmar. You called it the Golden Land. So tell us a little bit about where you are, and tell us a little bit why you love it so much.
Okay, the people here in Myanmar call their country the Golden Land. Shui means gold, no, and for them, gold is really a symbol of prosperity, being blessed. So it's a largely Buddhist country, and but the Buddhism here is the Theravada tradition. So it's an older tradition than the traditions practiced in China or in Korea. They're both Buddhism. So as a Christian, the Christian church here is quite old also, around more than 500 years already. But we are still a minority. And most of the Christians are in the north of the country in what they call Kachin land. And that is where I am, close to the border of China. But there is an ongoing civil war here. So I come here not actually as a missionary, but I come with a different identity. So I've been here for almost 3 years now. So Buddhism is the majority religion, but the tribes here are quite numerous. No, there are 8 major tribes. So I have to learn Burmese, which is the national language, and also the local language, which is Kachin. So in order I can say mass, hear confessions, and I think people come to me for confessions more compared to the locals because they know I cannot understand their sins. So they prefer going to me for confession.
I think it's safe to say we've all gone to a foreign priest who didn't speak English, for me anyway, when you knew he didn't really understand. So clearly it happens the world over.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's your current role at the moment? Obviously, we know you're in a parish, involved there as well. But what's your job really? What do you do day to day?
Yeah. Being in the parish, I daily mass I participate, but I work a lot also with the young people. So daily I have English classes, 2 hours. English is quite demand here, and education is really not that good. So through English, I'm able to incorporate JPIC and IRD, no? So these issues. So I also animate the Catholic Student Action Michina. So this is inspired by the See Judge Act method of Cardinal Cardin, and also I also animate the global Catholic climate movement here in the country to promote Laudato Si and ecological conversion. So most of the time I'd be with young people, so just trying to animate them. At the moment, because of the pandemic, we also introduced online conversations in English. So the last one we had was I was able to invite 3 monks and nun, a Buddhist nun, and it was the first time for the young people here, Kachin young people, to really have a conversation with a Buddhist monk and a Buddhist nun. So it was a good exchange, and hopefully when the pandemic ends, I'll be able to bring young people to monasteries, to mosques, because for them, they rarely have these opportunities, even if they live side by side, but they never really live together. So that's what I'm seeing here.
It's that experience of encounter, isn't it? Encounter, it helps us. And James, that's quite a bit of what you do as part of your work. But I know that you've had many experiences across the world, but particularly in the Philippines. Tell us a bit about your experience in the Philippines.
Yeah, can I break the rules a bit and jump back a bit? Just
go on then.
That encounter stuff, like Fratelli Tutti, is just full of it. So the Pope's most recent encyclical, there's all this wonderful stuff about dialogue and authentically encountering and listening to other cultures and learning from it. So the Clumbans have been doing this for years, but suddenly I think it's looking fashionable in the church, and I think this is a really exciting thing, and it could breathe some fresh air and open the doors for the Holy Spirit to do some wonderful things.
There is a bigger question coming up on Encounter as well, so don't give away too much.
Philippines. So I was lucky enough to go to the Philippines a couple of times. I spent a year living in a slum community, and it was wonderful, and I loved it, and it transformed me. Two particular stories I'd like to tell. Let's start with a visual aid. So this is a wonderful thing. Somehow I managed to get through customs. I don't know if you've seen one of these, Kurt. So this is a toad which has been converted into a little beautiful bag. See, it's got a zip there. When I take this into schools, the children are always interested to see that there's a part of it sewn up at the back there. We won't go into more details.
Thanks,
so there's a lovely little. I can see this becoming popular across the diocese, Father Chris. But to me, this captures the idea of ecological conversion. Like, so when I was living in that slum community and seeing how people were, they're amazing people. Like, that was a place where I played basketball and ate food, and like the people were committed and were beautiful, and like it was wonderful. But they were struggling, and they worked hard, and they used anything they could to make money, including things like this. My favorite was the puffer fish. They have puffer fish that they turn into lampshades. I used to show a picture of these pufferfish around schools in the UK, until one day a sharp-eyed child recognised there was a calendar with a woman not wearing enough clothes on in the background. And I'd never noticed that, and I didn't notice it when I was there either. But yeah, so this environmental thing, and I visited slum communities where they'd been they'd reclaimed land from the sea, so people were living basically in stilts on houses over. But then when the typhoon came, and various other kind of environmental catastrophes, like, you see the importance of creation and Laudato Si. Like, it just makes the links. Pope Francis is making the links between kind of social people and environment. So I think these two things together represent that story a little bit for me, for the Philippines. It was that move from, I remember saying, oh, let them eat turtles. People were hungry, people were in need. Forget the environment, let's get on with the people, and then actually it joins together, like it all matters, and it's part of what we're called to. The other thing is a story of, I remember being with a brother, and we went to the airport, and we were sitting in the car, and we were waiting for someone to arrive, and there were just streams of white men getting off the planes, and I turned to him and I said, oh, isn't it wonderful, all these people coming here, like, so good for business, so good for, the economy and whatever. And he looked at me and he didn't say, James, you're an idiot, because Filipinos are very polite and they would never say such a thing. But he implied very strongly, James, come on, think harder. And it completely opened my eyes. Like the relationship between the rich world and the poor world, and the oppressed and the oppressor, the exploited and the exploiter, like, and that to me was a conversion to justice, I think. That was a moment where I said, okay, I've been trying to do charity for years. I've been, raising money and doing sponsored runs and whatever. But this was a moment where I said, okay, actually, James, you thought your vocation was to stay in the Philippines and have a lovely time kind of eating mangoes and whatever. But actually, no, I think you need to get back to Britain and you need to work out how you can play your part in looking at some of the root causes of injustice. And trying to help young people and educators ask difficult questions about how they participate in society, how their lifestyle affects others, how the way we vote, et cetera, et cetera. And can't do it for everyone, so I've decided, like, my niche, okay, Catholic education. That's going to be where I sit and where I try and make a difference. So two moments of conversion, 2 moments of learning on my journey, 2 moments of discernment, if you like, or of call. One around the kind of ecological thing, and the other around this very strong call to, all right, justice. We've got to look at causes, not just consequences.
But I think
so
also what you saying there, James, is that's a prime example of encounter working at its best. If you had not been there and you had not been immersed in that situation, that would never have been opened up to you.
Yeah, but I think it's what's possible. Like, so as the Columbians, we run a thing called Invitation to Mission, where we take groups and immerse them. So we took groups to the border between the States and Mexico. We took groups to Peru, to Chile. But that's not always possible. And with climate change, I wonder if it'll ever be possible again that we fly in that way with big groups. And I think one blessing, if we go that far from the pandemic, is this understanding that actually we can bring people together online like this.
Definitely.
Like, we wouldn't have thought a year ago about bringing Kurt's voice onto a thing like this. And for all the people who watch this, they will have experienced that moment. And if we can't take them there, then can we? Does that make sense?
Totally. And like you said at the beginning, James, you knew Zoom before it. We didn't. We'd never experienced it. But actually now we realise how close our world can actually be through something. And yes, okay, we miss that interaction, that face-to-face interaction. But actually what we're getting from this at a deeper level is far more than we would be able to get if we were travelling here, there and everywhere.
Well, I think we used Zoom. We never used Zoom like this. We Zoom to a YouTube stream. We hadn't even thought of it. So there's wonderful things happening at this time, and there's lots of terrible things happening, and lots that we need to be responding to. But at the same time, let's notice that if we can't take people there, can we find other ways to bring people together to authentically hear people's voices, and to look for ways to make change.
Definitely. I'm totally behind you in that one, 100%. And so, I suppose, Father Kurt, that brings us to maybe your next question. For you, what's this experience of this pandemic been like on the ground where you are?
The first few months, like everyone else, we're all quarantined at home. So we can't really move out and visit people. No, so it really took a toll on the ordinary people here because they have to find work, and for them, work means you have to do the daily work to earn your day's food. And after a few months, the lockdown was lifted, so we're able to visit. For us here, it's the IDP camps that are really taking a toll because of the COVID. A lot of them are not allowed to go out, and they're very dependent on what the NGOs are able to provide for them. So when I went out to visit them, I met a lot of young people, and they have nothing to do during this time. So we decided to do a program for them. So at the moment, we're running a English classes and entrepreneurial skills for them to learn something, since the schools are all closed at the moment. One thing I really learned about the pandemic is that it just made me realize how much I cannot do. That for some reason I thought I come here to Myanmar and solve all their problems, but it's not what I'm here for. It's actually just being here with the people, listening to their own cries and their own problems. No? Initially, the Colombans came here earlier around 70 years ago, and they were also expelled, no? Because of the new government, the military government. And for us to come back here and to be welcomed again by the people is really a blessing. And the pandemic has taught us a lot that our presence here is more than enough to listen to them and be with them, and to know that we are not leaving them, and being here with them is for them really a big thing already.
And for us, one of the things we've seen over here is that people have come together, communities have developed ways of supporting each other and that sort of thing. Has that been the same experience for you?
Yeah, and for the Burmese, they're considered to be one of the most generous peoples. And we really saw that when the lockdown was kicked in, organizations were able to give food to everyone, especially those who are really in need. And you'll see also the communities working, different religions working together. And I find that here in Michina, where I live, I also work with the Religions for Peace. These are an organization that are composed of people of different faith traditions. And so we had Zoom meetings, how to help the quarantine centers. And it was really interesting because a lot of them, it's the first time to use this technology. And because of the pandemic, it seems like people are more closer now compared to before, when we have excuses not to meet.
Yeah.
But because of Zoom, everyone cannot say no because you're just at home. So it's really, it's sad. It's taking a lot toll on us, but it's also bringing people closer together.
And it's true what you say. There is no excuse now. It's when friends phone you up and say, "Do you want to have a Zoom call?" Well, I'm not going anywhere else at the minute. So, and I do think it's brought the world so much closer. I really do.
True.
And James, how we're aware the world's changed. We cannot deny that the world changed and it will change forevermore now. But how have you managed to cope in your work during this pandemic?
I suppose there's lots of creativity and adapting and thinking outside the box. I mean, I say that into a Zoom box as we speak. I was furloughed for a while, and that turned out to be very challenging to start with, and then beautiful. I had wonderful times with my family, but I also was able to be a driver for a local food bank. And that food bank, it wasn't a normal food bank. It was the local pub that turned into a food bank during lockdown. And people who weren't normally involved in any kind of outreach to anyone suddenly were. And it was beautiful. And I'm hoping, dear God, that those people found something in themselves that they carry forward. And then I was doing English lessons with groups of children from refugee families online. And Sandy, you might remember you came on and did magic tricks for them, which sometimes worked.
No comment.
Yeah. So that was fun. And then once I was allowed back to work, there's been all sorts of exciting opportunities. So we did kind of Laudato Si themed retreats outside, so that was a way that we could comply with the rules and we could keep safe. And I remember talking to you about the one where we had a group of primary school kids trying to get a shopping trolley out of a river as part of a kind of a retreat day on Laudato Si, kind of putting faith into action. There was a big thing with Don Bosco Green Alliance, a huge network around the world where I was interviewed by some young people from your old school, actually, where you used to be chaplain, Sandy, about taking kids on climate strikes. So I was able to say something quite radical into that space. Million Minutes, a wonderful Catholic organization that I've been collaborating with a lot. And we did a series of kind of online discussions that so many people around the country came to and received formation that they just wouldn't normally receive. And also we worked with, so Million Minutes do a thing called Celebrating Young People. And I'm on the panel for that. And there's a group of us involved, and we kind of celebrate young people who are living out Catholic social teaching. And we were doing a kind of call with them once a week, where they encountered all sorts of interesting people and were challenged and inspired, and to hear the voice of young people, that the future of the church, but also the now of the church, saying, you know, church, you've got to get your act sorted on the kind of role of women. Like, it's not okay that we're a panel of 4 men. Like, you know, like that we need to take seriously kind of inclusion in the church, that we need to act on climate change, that we need to look at politics, all the things that Pope Francis then comes out and say lots of in Fratelli Tutti. The young people are saying this, and it was just wonderful to be involved with that. And we gathered again for Youth Sunday the other day, and so that's a blessing. But I could go on for ages, Sandy. Like, I think it's possible.
The question I've got to ask, James, obviously you've got a family, you've been working at home. How have you coped with that balance?
Can you tell that I've tried to disguise my 4-year-old daughter's bedroom for this? Like, it's not a very effective attempt. I think I've got it good compared to lots of other people. I was in a school today and hearing the head teacher tell me about the challenges that they've had, and the number of families that, so the head teacher and a number of the teachers are putting together Christmas meals for I think it was 50 families in their school, and this isn't a massively deprived area. Like, there is a real need at the moment across the country. So in comparison, I have the challenge of going up and down the stairs when the kids are going the other way, or before we got decent internet, like, if I was trying to do some work and the kids were trying to watch Octonauts, that was difficult. You know, like, in comparison, it's not so bad, but I see some real challenges. And do you know what? For the Columbians and for others, all of these challenges are a call. Like, I think they are saying something to our church, and our church needs to step forward and deal with it. I heard your conversation, Father Chris and Sandy, at the beginning about, you know, the church is opening. Okay, but I'm not sure that's where the call is only. I think we've got to try and respond to the signs of the times. I think that's, if this Christianity means something, we need to be noticing where the call is and getting up. And I mean, that's the call to mission, isn't it? You know, it's to get up and do something and challenge injustice and reach out to those who are in need.
I think we can't deny that the world has changed, and that how we move forward and respond to it will be very different to how we would have responded to it 9 months ago. And I think it is, and I agree with you, it's time to embrace that change and move forward with it. And this has affected people the world over, as we can see. But just touching on the inter-religious dialogue, Father Kurt, you say that a lot of the work you do with young people is important for that. Why do you think it's important for young people to be involved with it and engage with it?
I remember I stayed with a Buddhist monk in their monastery for a month. And when I came back to the parish, the youth were very interested. Father, why are you doing this? They cannot understand the need to reach out to people other than Christians. And for me, opening their minds and their hearts to the other, the stranger, is very important, because here in Myanmar, the Christians are not the only people living here. There are Muslims, there are Buddhists, and even among Christians, there's a lot of tension, because here in where I am, we have a very strong Baptist church, and the Catholic are only a minority of the Christians here. So for me, creating these spaces, these encounters for young people to meet other young people other than themselves is very important, because it allows them to live out their faith. Because I believe God's love is not just for Catholics, it's for everyone. and that's something I want them to really understand. So for me, interreligious dialogue is an important aspect of us being Christian.
And again, that comes back to what we were talking about before. It's that love. We are people of love, and I think that's how we can reach out to other people. Just to touch on, I've completely lost track of where we are in the questions, by the way. Just so you know, but James, I'm going to jump back to you because a lot of the work you do involves campaigns. Okay, what's been one of your favourite campaigns you've ever taken part in? I think that's a new question, by the way. I think I just made that up as we went along, but never mind. We're going to go for that.
I think it links to the encounter stuff. I think lots of what happens is by meeting other people. You quoted St. Columban at the beginning that a life unlike your own can be your best teacher. So some of the stuff that I've been involved in is things like picking a school where it's in an area that would have some quite nasty attitudes towards migration, and bringing into that space some wonderful refugees and asylum seekers, and letting them encounter each other in a dignified way, where the kids or the teachers, because I've done these things as inset as well, walk away with a completely changed understanding. You know, they recognize the common humanity, they find things in common, and they can no longer just say those people, because they're no longer those people. They're part of this beautiful us. They recognize the humanity. So whether that counts as a campaign, like I'm thinking of one where we had it was an inset day for a primary school, and all the teachers took part in cooking lessons from asylum seekers, completely inverting that relationship, changing status, basically giving themselves opportunities to learn. It's a campaign. I suppose it's a campaign for a better education, a better acceptance around asylum and refugee issues. Another one, just to kind of be a bit more kind of strict on the campaign thing, is I've been enjoying taking young people to meet activists, or activists to meet young people, taking them to witness protests. So I took a bunch of kids from a Catholic school to witness and meet some of the protesters outside a mining AGM, including a bishop that had come from, I can't remember which country it was now, might be South Africa, and who was there, with his people saying, this is not okay, what's happening. And for those kids to witness that and hear those stories and interview them, oh my goodness, was that powerful. And then taking them to witness the climate strikes and speak to people, including people of other religions. So our young Catholics, or the young people in Catholic schools, go up to people at the climate strike and say, oh, why are you here? And they say, oh, it's because of my Islamic faith. It's because of my Hindu faith. It's because of, that's powerful. And it challenges them to be who they are called to be. So many examples. But I suppose one of the big ideas that I try and get across is that we're called to more than charity. Like, I feel like Catholic schools are absolutely amazing at charity. It's beautiful. Catholic schools in this country, like, there's cake sales and wear your own clothes days and bring in some money and bring in some food to share, and all of that is beautiful. But it's only one part of a bigger picture. We also need to participate. We need to work for justice. We need to, etc., etc. So the idea that I try and put across is the repertoire of contention. That we have a toolkit. There's a toolkit of things that can do to make change. And if, as educators, we only show them one bit, we're not doing our job. We've got to let them try on the idea of a prayer vigil, the idea of writing a letter, the idea of a petition, the idea of a strike. Give them all these skills so that they've got them. Because otherwise, it's our fault if they go into the future and something terrible happens and they all say, "What should we do?" A cake sale. We've got to help them see that that's part of what we're called to in our faith. And there's examples all the way through Scripture, all the way through Catholic social teaching. Jesus turning over the table in the temple. Again and again, there's examples about kind of how we can make change. Jesus was living in a military was oppressed.
Mm.
You know, he had Roman soldiers marching around. Like all of this. Yeah, I'm getting too excited. I'll stop so you can ask Kurt.
But what I am going to say is that you said before that young people are the now, because I think that there's a big belief that young people are our future. Actually, no, they are the now, because if we don't get it right now, the future's going to be very different for them. So actually, it's the now of young people. So, however, I did find
Pope Francis. Yeah. He came out with this big thing. And he didn't say prepare for the future. He said prepare the future. Prepare the future we want. It's an active, let's get on with it.
So, however, James, I found that the question I was going to ask you, so you've got 2 seconds to answer it, all right? You sent me a list of stuff that I should ask you. You mentioned ecological conversion. Just expand on that for 2 seconds for us.
That's it. See, the whole thing, this is all about ecological conversion. So it's about falling in love with, St. Columban said, if you want to know the creator, get to know creation. So it's finding God in all things. It's finding God and realizing the love of God for humanity through that, and then doing something about it. To me, that's a very quick summary of ecological conversion. But
quite impressed with that. Well done.
What we do in real life is, so I take young people to meet with one of my friends he's a missionary and a gardener, and he's obsessed with like worms and compost, and he gets the kids to kind of touch the worms, and and the other, what was it, last summer it must have been, there was a load of marijuana plants that had been confiscated by the police, and they brought apparently marijuana farmers have really good compost, so they brought all the compost to the community gardens, and the kids were repotting stuff with this. And it was just it was an allegory for this, it was this happening. It was, all of that is ecological conversion. So it's not just getting on a strike. It's falling in love with creation again. And at the moment, my goodness, like how good is it for our mental health to be outside?
Definitely, 100%.
And I'm sure that's not a coincidence.
So, as we said at the start, we're moving into Advent, and it's scary to believe. So over the next week, we're looking at the theme of hope. Father Kurt, I'm going to ask you, and it's a hard question to answer, and I know that, but what would you say hope like? If I could only say it. What would you say hope looks like to you? What does hope look like?
Yeah, this past 3 days, we had Thanksgiving here in the parish, and Thanksgiving means they bring their new harvest and their chickens and their hens. So there is one of my rule is to bless these offerings. And while I was waiting, I noticed this one father and his son, and they were carrying this tiny chicken. So they were trying to give this offering to the church, and everything that is collected is distributed to the different orphanage, to the different IDP camps. And when I saw him carrying this offering of a chicken, that for me is hope, that they know even with the little that they have, they can still give something for the other. So for me, that is hope, knowing that even with the little that you have, you can still contribute. You can still share something to others. And for that is a reality here, that people don't have much, but they give so much from what they have. And for me, that is hope. That is Advent for me.
And James, what fills you with hope?
I've got 8 minutes left on the call, so that's good news. That fills me with hope.
Thanks, James.
Young people, like doing amazing things, but also people like yourself that are willing to listen to them. Like we need the grown-ups of the church, the people in positions of authority, to be willing to kind of listen to Pope Francis's kind of get out the presbyteries and go and do some stuff. Like there's a call to bring our church to life, and I think that fills me with hope. Yeah, all the little things, the way that community has developed around, like our road. Suddenly we have a WhatsApp group with most of the road in it, and someone starts a library on the side of the wall, and everyone brings books and there's sharing, and like humans are capable of amazing things, and the church is capable of amazing things. I think there's all sorts of things to be hopeful about. It's just sometimes hard to make ourselves look up. I know I get caught up in my thing, and actually, if we look up, hope's all around us. But sometimes we have to be prompted.
Hope is all around us, and we need to see it sometimes. We really do. So, just very quickly, this is the quick fire round. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 questions, and it's a quick answer. All right, I know that'll be hard, but a quick answer. So, James, favorite saint and why?
Dorothy Day is not yet a saint, so I'm not allowed to choose her yet, but she's on her way. I'll take Oscar Romero. And why? Because of his willingness to engage with the people who are struggling around him, his courage, but also his humanity. Like he died the year I was born, something like that. Like this isn't a long time back, and it's not one of these saints that's suffered so much hagiography that it's just impossible to relate to them. He was real, and you can see his bathrobes with his monogrammed initials on it. Like he was real, but he had that courage. So Romero.
Thank you. Father Kurt.
Saint Therese of Lisieux. Well, she's the patron of missionaries, and she made it simple for us that to be holy is to do everything with love.
Thank you. James, favorite food?
Oh, I love food. I've given up meat for a year because of trying to walk the talk on this, and I'm finding it very challenging. Right now, it's perhaps because Kurt's on the call. What I really fancy is a Philippine mango. Philippine mango is just wonderful. Like Cebuano dried mango. You know the stuff, Kurt?
I do.
Oh, I'd love some of that right now. That would be beautiful.
And Father Kurt, what would yours be?
Well, for a Filipino, it's the adobo. Like well, for James, it's a no because it's pork.
Yeah, but it's all right. After a year, I'll be back.
But if you are away from home, you really miss home food, home cooked food, and that's what I really miss. Adobo.
Thank you very much for that. Gents, thank you so much for sharing. You're not getting away anywhere just yet. We've asked both of you to share your message to young people, especially at this beginning of this Advent. So, James, I'm going to go to you. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to Father Kurt first. If Father Kurt, if you could give us your message to our young people, and from practically the other side of the world, what would your message to our young people be at the beginning of this Advent?
Well, when Pope Francis came to Myanmar, and he was after a long time the first Pope to come here, he gave a message to the young people of Myanmar, and that for me is something that really still rings a bell and is still very useful. And he said to the young people here, be brave, be generous, and above all, be joyful. And those words are the same words that I try to use when I'm talking to young people here, that they have to be brave, especially at this time of the COVID, but also to be generous and not to fear, and above all, to be joyful. So I think that best encapsulates what I want to say for the young people.
Thank you for that. Maybe we'll get you back in the week of joy as well. We're doing joy in 3 weeks' time. Maybe you could come back and do another slot for us.
Sure, Sandy.
And James, to you, the same question. What would your message be to our young people?
I feel like I've put a lot of pressure on young people during this call to go out and do things and make the world a better place. So I think that the message I'd like to remind them is that they are not God. Like there is no need on any one of us to do all of this stuff. We are part of the mission of God. We are not the mission of God. That we have to play our part, and we are called to play our part. So I don't want to take away that call to action, but at the same time to remember that it's not all the weight on us. You've got loads of other things to be getting on with. Mostly, as Kurt said, you've got to go out there and be joyful. but you've got to survive your school and your exams and falling in love and puberty and growing up and all of this stuff. And in there, try and do some good. But it's not all the weight on you. We're part of God's big mission. There's a big love story, and we're just one little bit of it.
Gents, thank you very much for that. And thank you for sharing with us. We're going to move to prayer, but if I ask you, just don't go anywhere just yet. We'll bring you back in at the end, and I'll really say a proper thank you for challenging us, but also for giving us some of your inspiration and that in this current situation. So for now, thank you. We'll bring you back just before the end. And I'm just going to bring Father Chris back in. As per usual, I do apologise, but I've run over again. I am sorry. But at the beginning of this Advent, we'd be delighted if you would lead us in prayer tonight.
Thanks, Sandy. As we begin our time of prayer together this evening, let's make the sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Jesus speaks to us in many, many ways, and one of those ways is through the Gospels. Let's listen now to an extract from St. Mark's Gospel for the first Sunday of Advent. Jesus said to his disciples, "Be on your guard, stay awake, because you never know when the time will come. It's like a man travelling abroad. He's gone from home and left his servants in charge, each with his own task. And he has told the doorkeeper to stay awake. So stay awake, because you do not know when the master of the house is coming. Evening, midnight, cock-crow, dawn. If he comes unexpectedly, he must not find you asleep. What I say to you all is stay awake." As we anticipate the beginning of Advent, the start of the new liturgical year, we're reminded that this is a season of hope and expectation. It's a time of preparation as we wait and watch for the arrival of our Saviour, Jesus Christ. Janet Lees wrote about this in her prayer, Holy One. Holy One, we wait for you to come to us again, baby small and vulnerable, to grace our poverty, our humanity, with a heartbeat, a breath, and a cry. Holy One, you wait for us to notice you again, baby small and vulnerable, here in these people and in this place, present in a heartbeat, a breath, and a cry. May the guiding Spirit once again bring your waiting and our waiting together, to lift up the vulnerable and confirm the beauty of our humanity, each heartbeat, every breath and cry, bringing to birth renewed lives filled with everlasting hope. So as we embark on this Advent season, let's seize all the opportunities it offers as we pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. O God, you know us better than we know ourselves. In this time of Advent preparation, help us to spring clean our lives. Help us to deepen and strengthen our relationships with you, with others, with ourselves. Loving God, take us by the hand and lead us on a journey. Amen. The Lord be with you. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. Thanks be to God.
And thank you to Father Chris for that. It's been great tonight to start Advent off, and I know we're a bit early, but it really has been great to start Advent off together. I'm just going to bring everybody back in now. There we go. Okay, I've cut my own head off now. Gents, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Father Chris, thank you as always for leading us in that reflection. But to James and to Father Kurt, thank you for all that you're doing Thank you for all that you've given us tonight and obviously inspired us in. James, I'll put your contact details below in the video as well, so that if people want to get in touch with you, maybe to look at some of this, be it what some of our schools in the diocese or whatever it be. But if anybody does want to get in touch with James, just give us a shout and we'll make sure we get you passed on. But James, thank you for your passion, for your enthusiasm, for not only for Catholic education but for our young people across the country. And thank you for joining us tonight. It's always good to have a friendly face in the chat. Father Kurt, thank you for all that you're doing on the other side of the world, and thank you for feeling so close to us here in the Diocese of Shrewsbury. It is incredible what Zoom does nowadays. But we will keep you in our prayers for these coming weeks of Advent as well, as we know you will keep us in your prayers as well. So, gentlemen, thank you all very much for joining us. It really has been great. Sorry, James, go on.
I realised I haven't mentioned the Columban Media Competition for 14 to 18-year-olds. Google Columban Competition. The topic is Let's Create a World Without Racism.
James, if you send me a link, I'll stick it on below as well. So
£300 top prize. £300.
And I do think you've given us so much to talk about. This video will be here forever. For as long as we've got a YouTube channel, we will keep this video up. And I think there's a lot there to digest as well. So, gentlemen, thank you for that, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's been great to have you. Thanks for watching us. Don't forget that you can follow us. It's just going below me now. At Shrewsbury_YMT. We've got loads of Advent stuff going out over the next few weeks as well. Explore evenings. They're going to be incredible. We're actually we're leaving the confines of the house. I'm not. I'm staying here in the dining room table. But the team are going to Shrewsbury, to the cathedral to lead our first Advent Explore next Tuesday night. Then we'll travel up to Stockport in Our Ladies. We'll then move over to Warrington and finally finishing off in Woodchurch on the Wirral just before Christmas. So please do join us for them. There'll be an evening of activity, an evening of prayer, reflection, and just a good excuse to get together during Advent. Obviously, Monday Morning Live is starting again next week, so tune into that Monday morning. And obviously there's going to be loads of different bits and pieces coming out on social media, and a few videos on YouTube too. So please do watch that. Don't forget that if you haven't already done so, to click click the subscribe button, and you will know as soon as we go live. We are 4 subscribers away from having 100 subscribers. So please do keep an eye on that. I'm looking forward to reaching the 100 mark. But as always, thank you for joining us tonight. There's been so much to think about and so much to take on from tonight. And I really am grateful to James and to Father Kurt. So please do watch back the video. I will make sure James's details and the web links and that are below. So please do click that and get in touch. But thank you for watching tonight. And we look forward to seeing you in the Clergy Café next Wednesday. Thanks for joining us.